Have you ever met the guy that you wanted to hate, and when you went to pull your straps up, told you to wait? Now let me
Peace and love, what it do? Yours truly, General Power, Noli Shadows, better known as Author P.E. McCallum, back in the building. Author of the book NGR, What Does It Mean? Author of the book NGR, What Does It Mean? An expose on the N-word from a hip-hop perspective. And I'm emphasizing author today for a reason with everybody. You know, we back with another good and informative video, and we're going to get right to it today. I got to emphasize the author aspect of myself. Graduate of Tennessee State University. You see it. You know, live from Nashville, Tennessee. Even as we speak, and yo, we got to talk about Juelz Santana today. You know, me being an author, you know, wrote this very informative book, The Bible on the N-word, if you will. I suggest you all go get it on Amazon. Right now it's available in audiobook, paperback, and Kindle. All three formats on Amazon. You can get it right now and have it sent straight to your house. Because of technology. Look at that. But we got to talk about Juelz Santana today, y'all. As an author, I feel like it's only right that I speak on it. I have a few things to say about it because, you know, Juelz Santana recently, the rapper from the Dipset, all right, who raps alongside Cameron, Jim Jones, J.R. Wright. The whole Dipset is dope lyrically. First of all, salute to the Dipset as being some dope lyricists. And Juelz Santana is a very talented artist. I understand he wrote like most of the hooks for Dick. He came up with most of the hooks. So recently, Juelz Santana said some things on social media, on a podcast, that I think that it's appropriate and only right that me, being an author, address, you know what I'm saying? And especially being an author who comes at his writing from a hip-hop perspective. I think it's only right that I dive into this. So let's listen to this. This is from Justin Harris's YouTube page. Justin Harris, salute to you, Justin Harris. And we're just going to play some of the video because he has posted Juelz Santana's interview on here where he says something very critical about reading. He says something when I say critical, I mean something that needs to be critically analyzed. So let's look at it. Let's go.
And I think that shit gonna take over.
No, but seriously though,
G
shit though, we gotta start teaching our kids though just financial wealth and literacy and all that shit early, because by the time they get to 9th grade, they should be just learning how to start businesses and how to. But they don't really need to know how to read.
Wait, stop.
I ain't gonna say that. I say that respectfully. I'm not saying that in a way to be illiterate, because you're not supposed to be illiterate, but you can.
What's more important, reading or math?
Math.
Told you.
Math. I think you could listen to a book on YouTube. You can still obtain the information.
So right there, he contradicts himself. I cram to understand because first of all, he says you don't really need to learn how to read. Then he says, I'm not saying you don't need to be illiterate. But that's exactly what you're saying. Whenever you say, and again, salute to Juelz Santana, but you know, we're just doing some critical analyzing right now. When you say, let's go back and listen to it.
I say that respectfully. I'm not saying that in a way to be illiterate, because you're not supposed to be illiterate, but you can.
You're not supposed to be illiterate. We all heard that. But yet, you don't need to learn how to read. You're not supposed to be illiterate. So right there, I don't think I think he kind of contradicted himself a little bit right there.
What's more important, reading or math?
Math.
Told you.
Math. I think you could listen to a book on YouTube. You can still obtain the information. You don't have to know how to read. That's not reading and understanding. I believe common sense is better than everything. I'm a common sense nigga. I'd rather have zero book smarts and common sense, be able to read the room, be able to read life, be able to read people. I try to understand people, you know what I'm saying? Like, Nowadays, you can listen to a book. I just listen to the 48 Laws of Power. Not to
You gotta
could
read
listen.
your contract, Els.
You don't have to
No, you can
understand
listen
it,
to
though,
that
but
too. They got
Gotta
apps
read
you
your
can put it
contract.
in and it'll read it to you. Are you crazy?
Yeah, bro.
Huh? It probably will. AI will now. That's what I'm saying. That's
AI.
how freaky
You don't have
it
to
is.
read. Shit
got-
can be told to you.
You don't gotta read.
So
Just
I'm
no
not saying
math.
that in a bad way. Like you don't need to know how to
menu at a
read.
restaurant.
Floyd
Huh?
Mayweather don't read that
Menu
shit.
at a restaurant. Like it's mad shit you gotta read.
You saying that? You just gotta know what you like. You ain't gotta read the restaurant. You can just say, "What is this? A steak joint? I want steak, nigga. I want what y'all steak come with? What y'all got? When the waiter come,
Reading way more important.
when the waiter come, you be like, "What come?"
All right, so salute again to Justin Harris, man. So go run over and check out his YouTube channel. That's Justin Harris. You know, go and give him some support, show him some love. So that was like a minute and a half clip, and it's so much to unpack within the minute and a half. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's just so much to unpack. Again, you know, salute to Juelz Santana because he's the kind of guy that he writes all the hooks for his crew. Very super talented dude. So from his point of view, you know, he may feel like, look, I'm successful. I'm not the best. I'm not an author. I'm not, you know, I don't read a book a year. Or I don't even read a book. I don't even read books. Period. And look at my success. You know what I mean? But you went to school though. You know, first of all, you went to school, but you know, we understand that. So, you know, so in going to school, you were able to read. You read something, you know, and then you said you're not illiterate. So, you know, but when you're saying it this way in this context, it's giving the wrong message to the youth. I think you just didn't articulate yourself well. But we're gonna get into it a little bit. You know, we know that Juelz Santana is a gangster rapper, and you know, so he got all his money allegedly from the streets. So in the streets, you need common sense. You know what I'm saying? And I agree with that. Like in the streets, if you find yourself in a situation where you in the streets, you dealing in the streets, you know, hustling, etc., banging, whatever you're doing, then you know your primary occupation is forcing you really to have street knowledge. You need to be very, very concerned about how the game goes, and etc., you know, all the things that come along with the streets. I agree with that. But just think also, you still need book knowledge and book information, because the streets combine street knowledge with book information. Just think if you only have street knowledge. But then think if you have book knowledge, means you're a well-read person. That's what I mean when I say book knowledge. Think of how much more powerful you can be. So again, you're still limiting yourself. Now, I'm not suggesting I suggest you get out of the streets, actually. And I also am one that's going to go ahead and let you know that if the more book information that you have, the more well-read you are, the more literate you are, you know, the more options that you will have to where you don't have to be in the streets risking your life, jail time, and death. You know what I'm saying? However, if that's just something that you want to do because you got to do it, then, you know, respectfully, that's on you. But I just wanted to bring up a few points to Juelz. You know what I'm saying? Prodigy said something. You know, he said in his song Illuminati, he said, I couldn't articulate myself the right way, done. So I think that's what we're running into with Juelz Santana. I just think he's having a hard time articulating himself, because I think what he really was trying to say is that, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think what he was trying to say is that you can have all the book knowledge and the book smarts that you want, right? You can have all that. But if you don't have common sense and basic street knowledge, you ain't going to make it in this world. I think we can agree that maybe that's what he meant. But just in case that's not what he meant, because, you know, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But just in case that's not what he meant, I want to go through some points and remind him and remind our babies that listening to him and looking up to him. Because, you know, fam, you got to remember, Juelz, you got to remember, you know, you're a role model. whether you want to be or not. I know you may not want to be, but you a role model, meaning kids is looking up to you, fam, 100%. And they following what they listening, paying attention to what you're saying, just like your raps. So, I want to remind you of a few things, man. And this is all in love. Peace and love. Man sharpens man like steel sharpens steel, right? So, I'm not saying this to put you down. This is just to sharpen our swords as men. We got to remember Frederick Douglass, right? Frederick Douglass was somebody that was a slave. He was made a slave, born into it, if I'm not mistaken. But he was able to, somebody was able to sneak and teach him how to read. And he went on to be one of the greatest advocates for emancipation for our people that we know about in history. Frederick Douglass, man. Remember, they did not want him to read, but he was able to sneak and read. Somebody snuck and taught him. That's what they used to have to do. They used to have to sneak and teach us. Remember that. Also, I'm a part of an organization. I suggest all of y'all to, get involved with these babies. And I'm involved in an organization called I Read, I Lead. That's based here in Nashville. And I want to say peace to that organization. And I want us to remember that we got to get involved in these communities and show these babies the way. But I want to remind you also that reading empowers you. Reading empowers you. Because knowledge, how they say knowledge is power? I like to say knowledge is empowerment. Knowledge is empowerment. It empowers you. Sometimes you feel powerless in this society as a Black and Indigenous man. You feel powerless, but knowledge empowers you. And how do you gain knowledge? By reading. Reading puts you on an even playing field. It puts you in the game with all the instruments you need to win. Like, imagine going into a football game not knowing any plays. You know what I'm saying? Reading prepares you because the information that you gain from reading, not only is the act of reading itself good to activate your brain power and stimulate your brain and your brain cells, right? Just the act of reading stimulates your brain cells. And stimulation is a sign of life. It's a quality of life. Non-stimulation is a quality of death. So reading keeps your mind stimulated, which perpetuates life. But reading puts you in the game. It's like going into the game without having book knowledge at all, having literacy. I'm talking about literacy, not financial literacy, but basic literacy of how to read. You go into the game without the right skills. You don't have the right skills. And remember, Jewelz, why didn't they want the slaves to read? Why didn't they want the slaves to read, man? You know what I'm saying? Think about that. They had our ancestors in a situation of captivity and control and complete oppression. And the number one thing that they didn't want our ancestors to do was to read. Why is that? Why is that? Because they know the power of being literate. There's power. Reading empowers you. And the last thing you want your slave to be is empowered. Why was it illegal to teach the slaves to read? It was illegal to teach the slaves to read. It was a crime. Reading was so powerful that it was a crime to teach a slave to read. And, they used to say something back in the day when I was young. I used to hear this. They used to say, if you want to hide something from Black people, put it in a book. They used to say that if you want to hide something from Black and Indigenous people, the original people, put it in a book. They used to say that. So, like, for instance, you could hide. There's safes, right? For people on the street know this. They actually have like lock boxes made that to look like a book that you could just put right among books, because ain't no thieves looking in no books. Ain't no thieves looking in no books. If you want to hide something from an ignorant person, period, not just a black or indigenous person, let's just say if you want to hide something from an ignorant person, put it in the book. They also had another saying, is that the pen is mightier than the sword. That means that by being literate, somebody that can only fight and has, street skills and physical talents and brawn, you know what I'm saying? If they don't have literacy, they don't have knowledge, they can't write things down. The person that can write can defeat the mightiest sword fighter, the mightiest sword fighter, the mightiest samurai. The pen, that means that no matter how nice you are with that samurai sword, somebody can come along with a pen and defeat you with the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword. I want to also show you something that I've learned, since as becoming an author, right? I've learned that an author can control narratives. But in order to become an author, first you have to know how to read yourself. Once you know how to read, you can become an author, and then now you can control the narratives. You can't even write your own book. Say you want to write a book about yourself. You can't even write your own book about yourself, because you have to get somebody else to write your book, and then you're telling them what you want to write. You don't know what they're writing. You don't even know. You can't even control your own narrative of your own autobiography, fam. Think about that. You have to trust. See, the thing about not knowing how to read is you have to trust too many people. If everybody around you can read and you don't, now you got to trust everybody around you. Or you have to find one person to trust that you're trusting that's teaching you and telling you the right thing. What if that person is taking advantage of you? You're not on an even playing field with your constituents, the people around you. So as an author, you can then control narratives. I can control narratives like I did about the N-word. I went and did the research, right? Get my book. I suggest everybody get my book, and you can get it in audiobook on Amazon, right? You can get it on audiobook, but I want you to get the paperback version. I'm encouraging. I rarely tell people about the audiobook version. I mean, I don't rarely tell them. Let me rephrase that. I always make sure to tell them about the paperback version, because I know they may only want the audiobook because of today's society. A lot of people don't have a lot of time to read, but I encourage people to get the paperback. Now, by me knowing how to read and becoming an author, now I'm able to control the narrative of the N-word myself. Instead of having somebody tell me what the N-word is all about, I was able to go read articles, read books, and then decipher what the N-word means for myself, write a book about it, and begin to control the narrative. The N-word comes from NGR, right? Which appears over 14 times in the hieroglyphics, according to the author, E.A. Wallace Budge. And NGR is the early origins of the N-word, and it meant deity, god or goddess, divinity, king, queen, ruler, emperor. You also had in ancient Ethiopia, Negus, Negus, or NGS, which means monarch or ruler. It's also one of the original origins of the N-word. I was able to put all this together. You go to Nigeria, Dr. Philip Chidi Njemanzi, writing his book, Yahweh writing, cultural writings. So I can't quite remember the titles, but it's sourced in here. And Philip Chidi Njemanzi in his book writes that the N-word comes from, one of the origins is Inga. He talks about Inga Ori, right? Inga Ori means, Inga means God. Ori is like place of God. Again, referencing deity. But so then later the N-word was then taken by the Europeans and translated to mean Niger. Translated to Niger, Niger, which translated just to mean black. So it comes out of its divine divinity, God, goddess, emperor, monarch definition to now in the European language of Latin and Greek to be just black. And then of course from that you have Negro after Niger. Then you have Noir, French for black, and then you have Nigger. But before that you had Negar, Negar. But then it becomes to mean something totally offensive and something negative, as we know it to be today. And that's, but see, so that's the history. But I was able to put all that together in this book because I could read. So when somebody calls me the N-word, when a so-called white person, a person of European descent, calls me nigger with the hard R, I control the narrative, man. I ain't even mad. Remember, man, that the racist white supremacists don't want us to read. This way they can control us and have the upper hand. They want us dumb. These racist white supremacists, these people of European descent, the ones who are foul, because not all white folk, quote unquote white folk, are racist. You know what I'm saying? And go along with that. But on this channel, on this platform, we buck down the ones that are mentally with the pen, because the pen is mightier than the sword. But the racist white supremacists don't want you to read. They don't want you on the same playing field as them. They want you dumb. They want you illiterate. Why buy into that? They want you illiterate. They want you dumb. They don't want you having all the skills. They don't want your children to have the same skills as their children. A racist person who thinks that they are dominant over you because of their skin color, they want, think about it. You being ignorant, you not having the skills or talents and abilities, the basic skills to read and basic literacy that they have, definitely empowers them over you. Not only makes them feel empowered, but they got one up on you. When they say that you're in a race, it's because these people are in a race. It's a race to these people. It's like you are in a race against the other people of another color. That's why they call it a race. Because you're in a race against, according to these racist people, you're in a race. They're in a race against you. They are in a race against you, whether you're participating in a race or not. They are in a race against you. And the more sources that they have, the better they are equipped to win that race. And the better the less equipped you are to win in the race. So you said you rather have common sense and no street knowledge. But like I said at the beginning of this video, street knowledge plus book knowledge equals supreme empowerment. All right? Street knowledge plus book knowledge equals supreme empowerment. This is yours truly, General Pal, Anoli Shadows of the House of Hip Step. You know, the House of Hip Step is a positive organization, music organization, a movement. And hip stepping is about being able to reach all your obstacles, reach all your goals, and hip step over all your obstacles, no matter what. And reading is one of the best ways to do that. For a young person, that's your first step. To hip step, your first step in hip stepping, defeating your ops and your enemies, is to read, learn to read. So, get that book and take a look. You want to be empowered, read. Knowledge is empowerment, man. I want empowerment for all y'all. I love you, Juelz Santana. Still my brother. Much love, man. Spread love, not hate, and keep hip stepping, everybody. Reading. Learn to be a reader and you'll become a leader.